Welcome to On the Vineyard, a 10-minute weekly wrap-up of the news from the Vineyard Gazette Media Group on Martha's Vineyard. I'm publisher Monica Brady-Meyerov. We're so glad you're here. On the Vineyard is sponsored by Martha's Vineyard Bank. This week we learned Oak Bluffs town officials want to see a change with one particular building on Circuit Ave.
The select board discussed in their meeting on Tuesday night the possibility of adding an eminent domain taking for the Island Theater to the special town meeting warrant for April.
More on that story in a moment. The Gazette had a really special Tuesdays in the Newsroom this week. We invited 5 artists on the Vineyard to come and talk about what brings them inspiration in the winter. Editor-in-Chief Bill Evell introduced the evening, which we called Artists in Winter.
Creative juices, but it really also could be called Artists in Community, because all of these artists are incredible people who are also community builders, and we'll get into that too.
Jewelry maker Nettie Rule from Menemsha says she doesn't make much in the winter because she says she is wintering. Another artist, Althea Freeman, a printmaker from Vineyard Haven, says creativity comes to her like a spirit.
Tell this right, but they used to kind of believe that creativity came in as like a, as a spirit, and as long as you were there working, it would choose who was going to come through. And
there was a lot of scientific creativity at the high school last weekend. At the annual science fair, coordinator and teacher Anna Cotton announced the overall winner.
Okay, and our overall grand prize winner, this is the highest score for both engineering and investigative. It's the Dr. James H. Porter Tisbury Waterways Incorporated Award, is presented to Griffin Craig.
Griffin Craig tested the effects of UV light on synthetic dyes versus natural dyes, and he looked at how they faded over time. He found the synthetic dye lasted longer, but the natural dyes were more versatile. That's the sound of the historic press in the Vineyard Gazette offices in Edgartown printing the paper. And that means it's time to go upstairs to the newsroom and check in with Bill Evell, the editor-in-chief and the reporters on this week's news.
Around the island, the news was hopping, in particular at the Oak Bluffs Select Board, where they announced they would be considering taking the Island Theater by eminent domain. This will have to be approved by voters at town meeting, but just the mention of it caused a lot of stirring around the island. Emma Kilbride was at the meeting and has the story. Emma?
Thanks, Bill. So, yes, you're exactly right. The select board discussed in their meeting on Tuesday night the possibility of adding an eminent domain taking for the Island Theater to the special town meeting warrant for April. And more specifically, the potential warrant article suggests borrowing $5 million to complete the task.
Now, this is a big step, taking a building that anchors Circuit Avenue by eminent domain. So let's take our listeners through, how did we get to this point?
So to start off, eminent domain taking is something that municipalities or the government can do when they need to acquire a property or a piece of land for a very specific demonstrable reason. So, for example, to clear space to build a highway. And so the discussion is now, because the Island Theater has fallen into quite a bit of disrepair over the last 15 or 20 odd years, the question becomes, is this a public safety hazard, and is this taking up prime real estate on Circuit Avenue that could be used for something else?
Now, the Island Theater has a long history going back to the early 1900s. The current owner is Benjamin Hall Jr. The Hall family have owned it for a long time, but just give a little bit of the deep back history.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is now known today as the Island Theater opened initially as the Castle Theater, and then was changed to the Eagle Theater around 1915, but it's over 100 years old. And it is also the site of the premiere of Jaws in 1975.
All right, thanks for the history. Now bringing us back up to speed today. So you got to talk to Mr. Hall about this, this bomb that was dropped at the select board meeting, which he said he wasn't aware of, correct?
The impression that I got from him was that he was not aware that the select board would be discussing this on Tuesday night, no.
And his response?
So Mr. Hall told me that the Island Theater has been on the market for about a decade now. His asking price is $2.8 million, and the assessed value by the town of the property is about $1.6 million. He told me that he's had some trouble selling the property because of wastewater issues and some potential permitting issues, though I didn't get specifics from him on that. And he did tell me, too, that he would not be opposed to selling the building to the town.
Oh, interesting. Now, the Hall family, there has been another eminent domain situation, this one in Edgartown with the Yellow House.
Exactly. So the Yellow House is on the corner of Summer Street and Main Street in Edgartown. It was taken by eminent domain by the town of Edgartown because similarly it was falling down and it was hazardous and it was in a prime location. And so Edgartown took it by eminent domain, and now people might recognize it as the building that houses Lululemon on Main Street.
Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.
Turning now to everyone's least favorite topic, but one we can't get away from, ticks. The cold winter had a lot of folks hoping that maybe this would have an adverse effect on the tick population. Sadly, Ethan Genter is here to say, not so fast. It's much more complicated than that. Ethan?
A lot of people have been asking me, as well as Patrick Roden Reynolds, the tick biologist here on the island, what is this deep freeze that we aren't really used to in the last few years? What does it mean for ticks, especially the Lone Star tick, which is a tick that really enjoys like the southeast. It's coming up from warmer climates as it's made its way into New England in the last few years.
Yeah, our familiar deer tick has been around for a long time and has just done fine in lots of colder winters.
Yeah, and they live in Wisconsin and Minnesota, and so if they can handle that, they can handle this.
So they're just chilling beneath the leaf litter, beneath the snow?
Yeah, basically. When the cold comes in, that's where the ticks go for protection. Ticks are affected by the cold if it's cold long enough. If it's dry long enough, moisture is a big thing for ticks. So there can be an effect, but what I talked to a bunch of scientists this past couple weeks, and they said what we're experiencing now probably won't really have that much of a change. And even if it does, it doesn't really change how we kind of protect ourselves from these ticks.
Yeah, and they even have done some experiments on Lone Star ticks and different, buckets of cold water and things like that you were writing about.
There's research in Connecticut and Maine where they tested, different degrees, and we put these ones in just snow, these ones in leaf litter, these ones exposed to the elements at different temperatures. It was done in Cape Elizabeth and in Hamden, Connecticut. What they found was they survived pretty well in all instances. They survived better in Connecticut where the winters are less cold than Maine, but they still did pretty well in Maine. So any hope that they would be defeated by our few weeks of sub-freezing temperatures here on the island are sadly misplaced.
That is really a bummer to hear, but thanks, Ethan, for your reporting.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, that's all for now, everyone. Stay safe and stay warm out there.
You can read more on these stories and all the news for free at vineyardgazette.com. Coming up this week, the high school is putting on the musical Hadestown. This is a Broadway show that is only being licensed to high schools to put on, not regional theaters. I hear the talented students in the school do an amazing job. I'm going on Friday, and I'll bring you some sounds next week in the podcast. It's Valentine's Day, and several island restaurants are holding special meals. Bettini in the Harborview Hotel, always a romantic spot with their dark panel dining room, is having a special prefix dinner. And Black Joy Kitchen is holding Dinner in the Dark, a multi-course dining event, which I'm guessing is in the dark. If you want to fill your heart with love for your neighbor this weekend, make sure to read The Vine, our color tabloid-sized paper that's delivered with the Gazette and also to every household free of charge on the island. This issue is called The Heart of the Vineyard, and it's a guide to island nonprofits. This year, we list a record 151 nonprofits operating on Martha's Vineyard. That's amazing. Now for something a little different than our typical archival audio. Today, I bring you whale sounds from some early recordings in the 1940s.
The date, 7th March, 1949. The time, 12:15.
These whale vocalizations were captured by researchers near Bermuda and stored by the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. Back then, scientists recorded on crude hydrophones. Today, WHOI scientists use automated gliders, buoys, and real-time detection systems that can identify whale calls and report them back to shore by satellite. Thanks to Hui for making these sounds and some videos available to the public at whoi.edu. Our theme music is from Island composer and musician Michael Hayden. If you like the show, please follow us so you won't miss an episode. I know Barry Kaufman did. He's a listener in Boston who spends summers on the Vineyard. Thanks, Barry, and spread the word. Thanks to our sponsor, Martha's Vineyard Bank, committed to supporting the Martha's Vineyard and Falmouth communities through their charitable foundation and local partnerships. Martha's Vineyard Bank, your goals, our guidance. mvbank.com. I'm Monica Brady Myrov. Thanks for joining us on The Vineyard. Talk to you next week.